Welcome back to the homestead, friends. We are so happy you are here. We are continuing our garden cleanup as well as preparing for cooler temperatures for the animals and in our growing areas. Today we'll also be planting some garlic, and I'm going to show you my latest fermenting project. Thank you for being here, and I hope that you'll hit that subscribe button. So I really love stretching out the garden cleanup because it gives me something to do when the season is over. So even though the temperatures are cooler, you can just put on a sweatshirt and go out and just work on cleaning up here and there. So that's what I did with the loofah trellis. The original day that I started working on it, I noticed a lot of bee activity, so I let it be for a while. And then I came back to it, and I was calling myself being careful, but I accidentally clipped one of my fairy light strands. So I've messed up my fairy lights on the trellis. They're these adorable little Twinkie lights that will blink after dark. They're solar powered, and I just love them. So if you've never put fairy lights on a trellis, here's my full endorsement to get that done because it's so special. And it also makes the garden space just magical. And in the wintertime, it just gets me excited to think about all the things I'm going to grow there come spring. But with this progressive cleanup, I am leaving so many things for the birds. And, a lot of the critters overwinter inside of these plants too. So some of the things I will be cleaning up and some of the things I won't. And then we typically just put everything down in the bottom in a brush pile. I need to learn more about composting. So if you have go-to tried and true simple methods that you want to share with me about that, I am all ears. This fall, I have really been intentional with receiving the rest that is offered to us when fall enters. Normally I'm sad that the garden's shutting down, but also so burnt out. And this year is special because I haven't really burned myself out in the garden this year. I've got my first fall garden going with the brassicas and things, and it's just a whole different feeling this year. And we can get so caught up in the rush that we forget to stop and rest and, maybe think that we're not achieving or being successful if we're not rushing and doing all the things. So here is my encouragement to you to take that time to get that rest in because, nature has to reset and recharge. Why wouldn't our bodies need to do the same thing? Our area is experiencing a drought period. We may have had 2 occasional little showers pop up, but they're not coming in with a lot of amount of moisture. It's just super quick. Everything is so dry. So I've been trying to make sure I keep my raised beds watered a couple times a week. The cooler temperatures definitely help with not having them dry out as fast as they do in the summertime. I do have it still on my goal list to have drip lines put into my raised beds for next year. I'm not entirely sure how to navigate that for, having multiple raised beds and what that would even look like. Totally not prepared for filming today, but I'm going to pop some garlic in the ground right here in this raised bed to get that going because we've got really cold temperatures coming for next week, just the beginning of the week. And I realized that I still hadn't gotten my garlic planted. So a quick way to do this if you haven't ordered planting garlic is to get organic garlic from the produce section at your grocery store and then just pop your cloves off and plant your cloves. Got those put in right here, and I just put this cage over for some cat prevention. We have a big white pine tree in the front yard, and we are not sleeping on these pine needles. We are going to collect them and use them as mulch. And as more fall, I will go back out there and rake them again and use them as more mulch.
Fall cleanup is the worst.
So we like to put the pine needles around the blueberries, as blueberries tend to prefer acidic soil. And so in my brain, these pine needles are acidic and they would be beneficial to be in this area. So I do have some new plants that I showed in the previous video that we were able to transplant, and we pray that those are going to make it. And then the mulching obviously is always a good thing to help feed soil, as well as keep your plants warm when you have those cold bouts. And with the leaves mixed in, it might not be as tidy and pretty as if you had bought just pine needles, but I'm using what I have. I am feeding my soil, and the leaves are great food for the soil. It's like next year's garden soil, right? And so we are super grateful to be able to have that tree close by. And it's just not a difficult process to get those moved over every year. I do need to do some type of soil test or something here, because the original blueberry plants that we put in, the plants are not really growing, despite putting some blueberry food down in the spring, and then I just did it again. So I don't know. I may just need to do a soil sample and have that sent off to see what's up. I just imagine this area having big blueberry bushes one day and us having more berries than we know what to do with. In our last video, you saw us busy making apple butter. I am happy to report that that turned out amazing. We actually made 2 different rounds of it, and I was able to get the second round canned up. The first round we shared with friends. And what I'm not able to grow, I like to source locally. So the farm where we have our herd share at, I was able to get sweet potatoes and a lot of butternut squash, as well as that's where I got the apples. So today we are going to make something different with the apples, which is super exciting. I am going to try fermenting apples for the first time. Have you ever fermented apples before? I would love to hear in the comments your experience with that. One thing that I've pondered over a lot lately is how we lost the art of fermenting. I guess it's just when people started canning and preserving foods that the fermenting kind of went to the wayside, because it wasn't as necessary anymore to preserve the foods because you had the canning option. Plus freezers came along. So I originally saw Ruth Ann Zimmerman fermenting apples and really wanted to give it a try. So in addition to my apple butter makings and pie and fried apples, I wanted to add in trying fermenting apples. We have been trying to incorporate more ferments into our routine, and I feel like this is something that will be more accepted, more welcome of a thing to try. My husband is the tough cookie when it comes to the ferments, so we'll see. You can also go check out Ruth Ann Zimmerman, Homesteading with the Zimmermans channel, and see how she did hers in a gallon jar. And one of the beauties about fermenting apples this way is when you have an apple that's got a bad spot on it, you just cut it off and keep going. It's not about having perfect fruit, as opposed to when you would be doing like fermenting whole apples. Whoop. We're gonna add some cloves and a cinnamon stick and continue on. At the end, I'll be adding some salt, and then we're gonna let this sit for like a week, and it's gonna be ready to go, and everything's gonna be so good. She says that it's like having a carbonated apple. So, I'm excited to give this a try. We leave the peeling on these because it helps aid in that fermentation process, because that's where a lot of your natural bacteria is at. And so all I did was give these a quick wash. And these are apples that I got from our local Amish, our Mennonite, and the farm where we get our milk from. And we are excited. These are Virginia grown apples. This smells amazing. One of my dreams is to have a whole refrigerator for ferments and extra produce. Because if I was to make, like if I'm preserving my apples and having my harvest preserved for the winter and I choose to ferment, then like I could have a whole bunch of these jars stored up in a fridge and just take them one at a time as we're using them, instead of trying to do that in your in-home refrigerator, like in my main refrigerator, and it taking up so much space. So I'd love to have like an industrial size refrigerator just from like my ferments and overflow produce. Like how awesome would that be? So that's a dream I'm putting out there. So as we're approaching the top, I put another cinnamon stick and some more cloves, and then we are going to use some warm water to fill it up to kind of jumpstart that fermentation process. And she did 2 teaspoons of salt in a gallon, so I am going to do 1 teaspoon of salt. This is a half-gallon jar. And I think we are to squish these down, because as the process starts, they're going to draw up. And because I remember seeing a picture of her jar and like they had come up some. So I'll squish these down a little bit, get another apple in there. I'm going to use a glass weight on top. And probably going to use a fermentation lid, because I'm afraid that I'll forget to burp this thing, and I don't, which apples, she said, ferment slower, so it's not as like likely, I guess, that I'd have an explosion on the counter. All right, let's get some warm water. Alrighty, we're gonna see if we can turn out some yummy fermented apples. And I'm tempted to go ahead and do another jar, because I feel like these are gonna be a hit. Yeah, we're probably gonna do another jar. I'm so glad that I did another jar, because it reminded me that I hadn't put the lemon in the other. So we are going to pour out a little bit of this water so that I can add in 2 lemons worth. One thing I do want to mention is when you do your salt, make sure it's a high quality mineral salt. I use Redmond's salt. We have got our apples, salt, and lemon juice in here, so I'm going to put this weight in. And I got to find my other fermentation lid. So the apple is really soft, and ideally I would like for it to be not so mushy. So I am going to do another jar with a different kind of apple, and then we're going to see how that goes. But the flavor is great. You can taste that cinnamon. I do think it's been 4 days. I'm going to let them go a little bit longer, and we're going to see. Hopefully they won't like completely mush and disintegrate in the jar. But it's really soft, mushy texture. And I think that's coming down to this kind of apple. So we are going to let this go another day. And then I'm going to do another jar with a different, like more of a crisp apple. Because these were a soft gold. And I think I just would like it better with a more crispness to it. And not so much mush. But the flavor, I'm so sold on. Like, I'm so sold on fermenting apples and preserving them in this way. And also knowing that we're getting all those gut health benefits. Another thing we do every fall is to butcher our own deer meat. So this particular one, we just ground everything up and everyone had a job and we got it all packed up and frozen. And with that cold bout approaching, I realized I hadn't dug up my dahlia tubers yet, or hardened them off for that matter. So I clipped off the dahlia plants and just laid the foliage over the base of the plant so that it would aid in mulching. The ground was not going to freeze during our cold snap. It was just something I wanted to take an extra precaution to protect those tubers since I hadn't gotten them up yet. So this hopefully worked out well. We won't know until we go dig them up, but ideally with the quick snap, it should have worked out just fine. And then once I dig these tubers up, we are going to save them for next year and hopefully have another successful dahlia season, because this one was totally brand new for me, but it went really well. I didn't really know, all the things, but the dahlias did great. And so this whole digging and saving part is just going to be another learning experience. And then hopefully next year we'll have even more tubers than we did this year and be able to share some of those and enjoy another season of beautiful flowers. We are preparing for some cold weather to come through. So I'm rigging up methods for covering up my fall brassicas. So I got to get a big piece of fabric or something to put right there. I'm going to use a few buckets. This bed back here I've got covered up with a piece of fabric. And the thing now that's my concern is, will these hold up to the wind? So I've just used like cinder blocks and bricks and things to help hold the weight down. Hopefully it's gonna do, because like we're gonna have this quick bout of cold weather. Like Tuesday morning it's gonna be 27 with wind chills like super low because of the wind gusts, and then it goes right back up after that. So I just gotta make sure they don't get shocked, because yesterday was 70s, today is close to 70, and I'm like, you know what I mean? We just gotta get them to make it. This is a big one. I'm gonna use a bucket on this one. Not covering him up yet, but I'm like having the bucket there and getting everything prepped so that I can cover. And I want to show you something. When I was down here covering this up, I had a really pleasant surprise. Look at that! That's so exciting. And that's a wrap for this time, you guys. I pray that you can enjoy a nice, cozy fall, complete with all the yummy, cozy foods, and then just fall into that rhythm that nature puts us in right now to rest. Thank you for being here. Hit that subscribe button so you can catch us next time.